Hey everyone. So today I was feeling particularly nostalgic and I thought, well, maybe I could go check out some of the grad school websites and see what people have to fill out in terms of the application. And it turns out most of these schools have not released their grad school applications yet, so you're not going to be able to fill out the app until sometime in September when they open the links for you. But still, I'm a little curious, so I thought I would at least look through the website and see, well, what are the requirements? What are the directions and information that they're giving to students at this time? So if you want, you can check out this website with me and maybe I'll go over a few points and talk about things. And maybe it'll be fun. I don't know. Probably not. So to start this off, I figured we would look at Stanford's graduate admissions website, since this is where I went to school and I actually had to fill this application out myself. So as I mentioned earlier, that the online application for these graduate admissions right now is closed. So I imagine you'll get a note like this, and they're probably not going to open applications for students until mid-September, and right now it's early September, so you gotta wait a couple days. And so, but still, even though the application is closed, you can still take a look at some of the information that they have on this website. We're just gonna jump right, I'm curious, application fee, how much does it cost? $125! Oh wow, okay. So $125, that is way more than I remember it being. Was it that high? That's like a Michelin star restaurant dinner. It's like, do I want to apply to Stanford or do I want to go to a Michelin star restaurant? So, I don't know. Maybe it's inflation. Yeah, it's going to be $125. It looks like, oh, okay. I guess there's opportunities for you to apply for a fee waiver. But, I guess if this doesn't pan out, you got to fork over $125. All right, non-refundable. Cool. All right, let's get back to the main part. Not here. Okay, so let's go through application overview. And so, okay, it's all nicely laid out for us, each section of the online application. So we start off with personal background. Yes, makes sense. They want to create an inclusive, diverse university for all community members. And so, they want everyone to apply. So down here, program selection. So you want to figure out which department that you're applying for. And then specialization, honors co-op program. I don't think I applied to any special honors program. And yes, here, this is interesting. Consideration for the master's program if not admitted to the PhD program. So I remember having to check a box where I applied for the PhD program, but I also checked the box that said, if you didn't get into the PhD program, do you want them to consider you for just the master's program? And so, that's a decision up to you. If you feel like, well, I only want to go to grad school if I'm doing a PhD, then, that's your choice. Okay. And another note here is that I think this applies to most universities. If you are applying, you can only apply to one program per year. So, and I guess there's an exception with the biosciences. So it's possible that if you're interested in, say, mechanical engineering and also electrical engineering, you have to choose one department. You can't just apply to both. So that's that. I do remember some schools I applied to did allow you to apply for multiple departments, but you have to check out the instructions on a school-by-school basis. Okay. So academic history, I guess we're talking about grades. So transcripts, let's learn more about transcripts. And yes, academic history for grad school is very, very important. I would say it's probably the third most important thing after maybe your research and your letters of recommendation. And obviously with grad school, your grades matter a lot. Probably more than they did in college, because in college, I think if you have really good extracurriculars, stuff on the side, you can probably make up for your academics if they're not quite up to par. But because a lot of graduate school, doing research, all that is very academically focused, they obviously want students who come into grad school to be prepared for the workload. And obviously there are exceptions. Some people can enter with grades that are subpar, but that usually requires you to have very strong research experience or very good recommendations from professors vouching for your ability. So without further, let's look at transcript requirements to get more specific. So Stanford considers unofficial transcripts to be sufficient. That's great. And academic records should give detailed information on content and quality of your performance, titles of the courses. Obviously, transcripts should show that. For those of you outside of the country, though, outside of America, and there is a very good chance that some people will not have transcripts written in English, so it looks like they want the original language records with official English translations. And yeah, I imagine when things get complicated, you can, for instance, if students go to schools where it's not like a 4.0 out of a 4.0 GPA, they might be a score out of 10, or they have a different sort of grading system, and that's where things get very complicated, and it's a little difficult for them to compare students across different sort of grading systems. But hopefully, with their experience, they should have figured it out by now. But yes, transcripts, very important, but obviously it's just a numbers thing. It's very simple. It's a very simple part of the application. It's what you got. So scrolling down here, we got test scores, all right. So we're dealing with, depending on your selected program and language background, you may be required to submit one or more of the following test scores. So we're talking about GRE, the general test, where we got the writing, reading, math. I actually made a video on this probably. You can check that out. But keep in mind, a lot of grad programs don't really take GRE exams as part of the application anymore, which can be good for you or bad for you depending on, whether GRE is your thing. But I think in many cases, GRE is no longer required or it's optional. There is a GRE subject tests too. So for those of you who are in math or biology, they have these specialized subject tests, and those are a little different from the GRE general test. And so you probably want to double check the department at the school you're applying to see if they want those. And then this is TOEFL for international students. Let's see. GRE is something that I didn't really focus very much on because I knew it wasn't super, super important, but let's just take a look. GRE test, subject test, TOEFL, and then self-reported, and then official scores. You must report your official scores directly to Stanford from ETS. All right, so you basically want, ETS is the organization that holds the GRE scores, and so they probably want them to submit it to them. All right. Okay, this is not very interesting. You can look at this later on. I have the website. I showed the website to you a little earlier. So let's move on. All right, so now let's go to experiences. This is the next part in their application overview. So this section provides you an opportunity to share information about any relevant experience in the following categories. Research experience. Yeah, so if you're applying to a research program, research experience is probably the most important thing for you in your application. So you want to certainly look for this, and hopefully you've done it during your undergrad career. So next, after that, is your publications, presentations, and posters. And this usually goes along with your research experience. But, keep in mind that publications, while they're nice to have, you don't absolutely have to have them in order to get into a program of your choice. I was at Stanford. I knew a lot of people who were there who didn't publish, but most of them had research experience. Publications is just something that's nice to have, and obviously it's a physical proof that you've done good work in your research. Presentations and posters, same thing. And below that are your awards and honors. So you can include those. Hopefully you had a lot of good academic awards too. If you had awards that you got from doing your research, even better. And lastly, they show work experience. So on top of research experience, you can also show off, if you had teaching. If you're a TA, like a teaching assistant, that's also a work experience that you can include here. It can obviously help a lot in your application. I knew the head TA for the circuits class that I worked with, he got into a lot of great schools because he helped write a lot of the labs, and the professor wrote a great recommendation for him. And so I think he was pretty light on the research experience, but he was a pretty great thinker and problem solver. And so that helped him get into some pretty great PhD programs. Not only does work experience include TA shifts, but also if you did internships in industry, for instance, or if you did a research position in industry, a lot of that work experience also is a good indicator of how great at managing yourself and working on projects you are. And so this looks like basically a resume, right? So hopefully you've all been constantly working on your resume throughout, high school, college. And so make sure it's fully updated with all of the relevant experiences for your grad school application. Okay, very important. So next, obviously, we have recommendations, which, as I mentioned, after research is probably the second most important thing in your application. And so a great recommendation can, in some cases, make up for many other parts of your application that are lacking. For instance, mediocre grades, maybe. If you have a prof that you worked for in lab, they say really great things about you, that could help tremendously. So here in these instructions, you are required to list 3 academic or professional references who know you well and are qualified to evaluate your potential. Great. I have another video on recommendations. You should check it out. It goes into more detail. But okay, it's great that they're just saying, okay, 3 letters of recommendations are required for your application. And not like, 1 optional one or 4 where 1 is optional or 2 where 1 is optional. They just say, okay, 3 letters. Okay, I'm glad, because some schools when I applied for, like they would give this like optional one, and then you have to think about, do I, like when they say optional, do they mean it's actually required or if it's actually optional? So I think in most cases, most schools will say 3. So you want to pick your people accordingly. So choose your recommenders. Let's see. Register your recommenders as early as possible. And obviously you want to talk to them before you list them as a recommender on your application to make sure that they're open to writing a good one for you. And then, recommendation form. I already went through all of this in my other video in more specifics, so I won't bore you too much, but this website here on Stanford shows you the actual recommendation form that they're going to make the professor or whoever it is writing the rec fill out. So I didn't even see this when I was applying. All right, let's go back. And finally, okay, so we got statement of purpose. I also have a video on that, so you can check that out on my channel page. Submit an optional diversity statement. Okay, so there's the main statement of purpose, and there's also an optional diversity statement. And I believe, not every school has an optional statement, supplementary statement, but Stanford does. So you're required to submit a statement of purpose in response to this, and describe succinctly your reasons for applying to Stanford, research interests, future career plans, backgrounds and interests which may aid the committee in evaluating your aptitude and motivation for graduate studies. Okay, so most statement of purposes across many different institutions basically ask the same question. So you could probably take an essay that you've written for one school and sort of recycle it for other schools as well, with minor tweaks depending on which school it is you're applying for. But in the case of Stanford, you got a diversity statement as well. And you got to check every school to see if they have their own supplementary statement. So Stanford University is committed to expanding diversity of its graduate student body, improving students' sense of inclusion and belonging, and advancing equity and justice in higher education. We invite you to share your lived experiences, demonstrated values, perspectives, and/or activities that shape you as a scholar and align with these commitments. So it should not exceed 500 words, which means it's shorter than the main statement of purpose. Yeah, that's great. Diversity is always good for a student body. So that is statements. Let's go down. Program supplemental is next. So the questions in this section are tailored to a graduate program you selected. You may be asked to provide your academic interests, faculty interests, writing samples, and supplemental essays. So I believe in this one, depending on your department, some of them may ask you to submit writing samples. And so I don't remember submitting a program supplemental to Stanford, but I do remember in some cases maybe submitting like an abstract to some schools that ask for it. But again, yes, check on your graduate program's website for the requirements. But that's what this is, okay? It's not the same as your statement of purpose, for instance. This might be a supplement on top of that. So, and then I think in Stanford's case, they got additional information. Down here, again, I mean, I'm assuming that some of you are applying to Stanford too, because this is a Stanford specific thing, but you can provide your information to your Stanford professional schools. Let's see. Okay, so we're talking MBA, PhD, JD. Yeah. So you can look through this, but down here is a Knight Hennessy Scholar. So this is basically a special scholarship that Stanford began offering. I don't know much about it because I was not one, but as I understood it, there was a very fancy, relatively new building that Stanford built on campus, and only Knight Hennessy scholars were allowed to access or go inside. So, yeah. This is just their special programs. Okay. And okay, this is interesting. Finally, you have the option to upload a supplemental document if you wish to share additional information that was not covered. All right, that's nice that they gave you that option. Okay, so this is Stanford. I know it has not been, the application is not open right now, but they've already provided you a lot of instructions and information so you can get a head start if you haven't already this summer with how you want to fill out your application. Wow, this video has gone a little bit long, but I was gonna even go over like Princeton's application as well, just to give you like a second example in case there's for comparison purposes, but we can be a little quicker about this. So again, actually I'm curious, how much do they cost here? Deadlines and fees. Wow, okay. See, this is a little more reasonable. Application fee is only $75 to apply to Princeton. So Stanford's like a little less than double that. This is more reasonable, right? This isn't a Michelin star restaurant. This is more like a all-you-can-eat Brazilian barbecue or something. So, and yeah, you want to pay attention to deadlines. I believe most schools are like, most of the programs are due around the same time. Like I remember, like I think I turned in my stuff December 15th. For almost all of my schools. But yeah, I do understand there are different departments, so make sure to pay close attention to these dates. And I believe you'll find out the results sometime in April. I thought I saw that somewhere in this website. Okay, here. So under apply, once I clicked on apply and I scroll down, you can see that the admissions decisions come out. They're mailed separately by department or program starting at the end of January through March 15th. Okay, and all decisions are sent to applicants no later than March 15th. And if you're on the wait list, then that means that, you know, if a spot opens up, then you might learn something closer to April 15th. So I remember a lot of my admissions decisions came out maybe February. I might have learned some of them in January, but I think most of them, I remember I got into Stanford around February. So it depends. Like obviously if you're lucky like I was and you get into some schools, then they'll tell you earlier on. And then, but you know, even if you don't get in like early on, all hope is not lost. You could have been placed on the wait list and you can find out later in the months in case they sort of a spot opens up for you and then they put you on. I've known several friends who have gotten in off the wait list. So let's look at the admissions application section. So under prepare, scrolling down, let's see. Okay, so it's nice that they have it all organized for you. So I believe the application for fall 2023 admission is closed. So it's the same as Stanford. But if we look at preparing the application, you can still look at all the different elements that they provide for you, just like they did on Stanford's website. So we talked about deadlines and fees. And then here is the statement of academic purposes. Statement of academic purpose. So the statement should include, it's 1,000 words. See, the same length as Stanford too. The statement should include plans, highlight current academic, future career plans as they relate to the Princeton degree program to which you are applying. Experience, include relevant academic, professional, and personal experiences that influence the decision to apply for graduate admissions. And your goals, goals for your graduate studies. So, as I mentioned, a lot of overlap, similarities between what they want in your statement of purpose, which is great. And of course, they want a resume, talking about research experience, employment. Okay, they mentioned community service. It should show your employment, activities, your honors, your awards. Honestly, community service is probably not a huge factor in your graduate admissions application. It's very, very important in college, but it's less important for getting into grad school, to be frank. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it for other reasons. Doing community service is great, but a lot of graduate school application is focused on your academic achievements. So it's just the way it is. Next, of course, they talk about letters of recommendation. Let's see how many they actually need. So, okay, 3 letters of recommendation are required due to the volume of applications which are received. In order to read each application thoroughly and thoughtfully, we limit the number of recommendations to 3. Okay, so I'm glad they made it simple. Okay, and it looks like they might have some exceptions depending on what department you're in. And looking at these instructions, doesn't seem to be much difference between this and Stanford. So just get their emails, full names, and they're going to send all the information over. That is your applications. Transcripts, I assume there's nothing special here. Yes, transcript will show the name, institution, number of courses, and grades received. And yes, they also want translation. And here's a note about sealed copies. Interesting. If you only have a sealed copy of the transcript, you may open it, scan it, and upload it to the application. Transcripts should be scanned in black and white, blah, blah, blah. Okay, interesting. All right. I think when I was applying Berkeley, when I was at Berkeley, the college actually provides us official transcripts, which are basically transcripts that are sealed. So there's an envelope and there's a seal on it, so you can't like rip it open, and then you had to send that out. But it looks like it doesn't matter. You can just like open it, take a transcript, seal it, and then take a transcript, scan it, and then send it out with your application. Okay, and then international applicants, they might have many cases have a normal program length that is shorter or longer than 4 years. No degree that has a normal program length shorter than 3 years will be considered equivalent to a bachelor's degree. Okay, well, it depends on what country you're in. Yeah, that's transcripts. Your fall semester grades. Okay. So a valid question is, okay, in my senior year, does my fall grades matter? So let's see what Princeton cares, and I'll tell you my experience after this. So applicants will be encouraged to upload a current transcript which includes the fall semester grades from the college where they are enrolled. If an applicant is not a current student, or if the school does not provide fall semester grades are not required. If the fall semester grades are not available at the time of application submission, please log back into the application checklist and upload them when they become available. Okay, so in that case, if it's not a current student, or if the school does not provide them, then fall semester grades are not required. That's great. I think in my experience, most schools don't require fall semester grades to be submitted. I think maybe one of the schools I applied to, I actually did send my fall semester grades just out of like good faith. Okay, required tests. I did a video on the GRE. I think I might have even gone over the Princeton required tests in that video on my channel. But yeah, okay. There's nothing special here, honestly. The GRE for graduate school, GMAT, I guess is for business school. Department of Finance, okay? And then, of course, TOEFL. So you can go over this in your free time. Writing sample, again, writing sample is not the same as your statement of purpose. It's to show your writing skills. So in my case, in engineering, I submitted an abstract, I think. I think it might have even been for Princeton, but I didn't do it for all my schools, like not for Stanford. So it looks like, depending on your department, some departments actually require some sort of writing sample. And anthropology requires a written work, 25-page maximum. English, sample of written work, 25 pages. Wow, okay. So I don't really see engineering here, but yeah, some of these departments, they actually want a good size written sample from their students. So you want to pay close attention to this. And statement of financial resources. So applicants that are applying to any of our master's programs other than the School of Architecture will be required to fill out the statement of financial resources during application process. Okay, this information is not used when evaluating application for admission. Okay, that's good. And so it looks like it's reviewed by graduate school only if the department program recommends an application for admission. So they want to basically know the financial situation so they can determine whether they want to provide some sort of financial aid to the student after they've been admitted. All right, and then there's a bunch of other stuff here. Okay, so these are actually some questions that were addressed that we already talked about looking through Stanford's website. Can I apply to more than one department or program? No, only one application can be submitted each year. Do I need a master's degree? No, a bachelor's degree is enough, and that's the case for me too. I only had a bachelor's degree when I applied to my PhD programs. Princeton offers a PhD in my field, but I don't see a master's degree listed. Can I apply for just the master's degree? And they say no. It means the master's degree is not offered in the field if you don't see it. And here, Princeton offers a master's degree and a PhD in my field of study. If I apply for one and you do not make an offer, can I be considered for the other? And they say no. Okay, so this is different from Stanford actually. At Stanford, you could have the option, as they mentioned, that you can check the box where if I don't get into a PhD, can you consider me for the master's program? So it looks like Princeton does not do that. Okay, I was going to go through like a couple different schools, but I feel like kind of ran out of time. And by the way, like I think in most cases, a lot of these applications, even for different schools, are very similar in terms of what they're asking for from applicants. But I mean, I hope it was useful, like us kind of going through the web page for Stanford and Princeton, just to give you an example of what kind of materials you need to prepare so that on the day that the application opens up and you can start filling in your information, you'll be ready for that. So this was something fun for me too. I haven't seen this stuff in a long time. I mean, it sucked when I was like filling it out. It was probably not terribly fun, but it's interesting to see this process once more, and hopefully this sort of gave some motivation or inspiration to you to start thinking about those apps. Anyway, I hope this was fun for you, or at least somewhat educational, and good luck, and have a nice day.